So now let's take a look at the prepared bacteria slides. So you should have 3 in the kit: the Spirillum, the Bacillus, and the Caucus. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the Spirillum first. That's the more unusual one. Very cool. Probably not going to see any of these in the samples you actually make. And so I'm starting out again with the slide stage all the way down. I've got the 4x objective in place. And then I'm going to bring the slide stage all the way up. And as we can see from the screen, it got into focus pretty well. And so what we see then is essentially, looks like magic marker, right? Well, these slides are like the slides that you're making in lab where they use, for example, crystal violet. And crystal violet is a blue to purple dye, right? And so that's why it looks like that. So some of your prepared samples may look just like that because they did the same type of staining that you did. Okay, so right now that looks like a smear though, so let's talk about what actually are the bacteria, right? So this is an important component here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it up to the 100x objective. I'm going to use fine focus to get it in focus. Then I'm going to go ahead and bring it up to the 40x objective. I'm going to go ahead and get it into focus. And actually I see a spiral one right in the middle here. So if we look at the screen then, there we go. See that squiggly thing right there? Woo, 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 woo. Right? So that is a spiral bacterium. Okay, it's a pretty big one. And so, so there's one there. And there's one going this way. There's one going here. So the fact that there, see that little kind of squiggly? So that's also one right there as well. So this right here, to me, looks like a Bacillococcus or Coccobacillus bacterium. And those are the really short rods. Over here, these look like Bacillus bacterium as well. So what I'm looking at here, although my slide says right on it that it is Bacterium spirillum, I actually see that there are other types of microbes there. Okay, so that's unfortunate, but part of this, the purpose of this class is for you to be able to identify what is correct, and so that's why I'm making this video, right? To show you that's what you're looking for. This other stuff is not what you're looking for, okay? And so kind of on point with that, let me go ahead and just change this around a little bit so it's easier for me to find something. So something like this. See that big chunk thing there, right there? That's just some big old chunk of dye, right? Maybe mixed with a massive bacteria. So don't be giving me photos of that, right? That's crummy stuff. If you want to post that to the discussion board and say, hey, look, this is an example of what's not bacteria, that would be fine, right? But for spirillum, you really want to find the particular sections on the slide. Let me see if I can find another one. Here we go. Here's one kind of by itself in the middle. Ta-da! There we go. Right? So now let's go ahead and look at the microscope again. So I'll show you the next step, because this is at using the 40x objective. Okay? So for up close, what you'll see in the lab, it says you need to use, for the photos that you upload into your lab report and on the discussion board, you need to use the 100x oil immersion lens. And so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go from 40x to the 100x. And if we look at the screen, we kind of lost it. Okay, so I need to find it with the fine focus. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and change the amount of light that's going through. Make it a little bit darker. Okay, and now if we go ahead and pull this up, a little bit of movement with the hands can go a long way. There we go. So you can see right there. So that's a bacterium. Okay, but right now it's not very focused. So hopefully using this will make all the difference. Okay, this is the immersion oil that came with the microscope. And so what's going to happen is when we put this oil on the slide, we're going to put the objective directly into the oil. So there's going to be a column of this special oil that is going to be touching the glass and the sample itself. And it's going to then be touching the objective above it. So it's going to make a column of oil with the same refractive index as glass. which means that light is not going to, right now, light is kind of scattering all over the place. It goes through the sample, but also what it does is it scatters all over the place. By having this shaft of oil in there, it collates the light and gives you a much clearer image with higher resolution. And resolution is a term that you need to know. That is the ability to differentiate between two distinct objects. That's at least the definition I'll give you right now. Okay, so let's look at the image on the screen right now, and let's compare that to, let's look at how I put this on. So for the microscope, I'm going to take this, I'm going to move the immersion oil objective out of the way, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and take this and put a drop right on the slide. And then I'm going to move the oil objective right into it. And so, hopefully, what we'll see on the screen is a clearer image. And right now, it's not. It's all really goofy. That must mean that I didn't put enough oil on or did not make enough of a column. So I'm just kind of moving it around, hoping that I put enough on there. There we go. All right, so let me throw my glasses on here. Yeah, so that right there is much clearer. So that right there is the image that we would want uploaded into the discussion board, uploaded into the lab report. Now it's a little bit dark background, and it's darker because of the camera that's actually filming us right now, right? So this looks a little bit different, what you're seeing, than I'm seeing it with my own two eyes. The background is actually brighter. There we go. So what I'm doing right now is I'm changing the iris diaphragm, okay? And so if we look at both the iris diaphragm and the screen at the same time, right, when I close that off, see how dark that gets? There we go. So for the purpose of the class, like that right there, beautiful image. If you were to get something like that, you're doing great at this. Okay, so that is the kind of microscopy we want. And as you can see, I mean, yeah, I've done this a long time, right? And so things are intuitive to me. But I can get this image pretty quickly using the same type of setup that hopefully you have, right? And so this is the type of image to go ahead and save and upload and designate. And remember, all of these other things, they're interesting, but what we're trying to show is what spirillum looks like right now, not what Caucobacillus looks like, which is what that is, right? So a short, kind of fat rod that's almost circular is Caucobacillus. So let's go ahead and I'll show you a little bit. Well, nope, let's go through the steps. So what we can do then is we can go move this. We're done with that. So I took the picture, uploaded it. When we're done with the slide with the oil, right, I may want to look at this again, so I'm just going to put this to the side. But let's go ahead and look at the Bacillus Form microscope now. Okay, so for the Bacillus Form, we'll start out with the 4X. We can see it right there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move it to the 10X objective. Get it into focus. .40X, get it into focus. Change the light a little bit. Okay, so what we're seeing here then is this is supposed to be Bacillus. It's kind of hard to tell right now because these bacteria are really small. I think they're a lot smaller than the spirillum. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the 100X, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and put that oil on right now on the slide. Slide the oil right in there, and I'm going to go back and forth a couple times just in case it didn't grab it. So now hopefully I've got that oil in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and see about getting this in focus. All right, so the amount of light is an issue right now, so I'm going to back off on that. And I'm going to go to an area where there's a little bit more densely stained sample. Okay, this is not the best. I'm going to go ahead and stick another drop of oil here. So now that I've got more oil, let's see if we can get this a little bit clearer. This is one of those examples where in the microscope, it's a little bit clear. Like right now, oh, it looks so clear. Not quite as clear, and I understand that, right? So what our goal then is to just get it as clear as we possibly can. Maybe I need my glasses to see. And I'm just using the fine focus right now. So this slide, I'll say, is a bit disappointing. And the reason it's disappointing is that this is supposedly a Bacillus sample, right? And what I'm seeing is I'm seeing more of Caucus, meaning that they're really, really small. What I would like to see is I would like to see long rods. And I'll show you some of those on a different slide. But from this slide, part of what you do is you go ahead and take your image All right, so go ahead and take snap that image with the snap and then save. Use that, label it. And what, if I was going to load up that, I would indicate that, through my reading from the class and looking at images of what it should look like, this does not look like Bacillus, and these are the reasons why. So that's part of this class. If something isn't as you expect it, and you've done everything right, it's your job to say, hey, it should be looking a little bit differently right now. Okay, so I'll show you what a rod looks like in just a moment, but basically, I'm going to show you a little trick right now. Since I'm going from a bacteria slide to a bacteria slide, I am going to actually just not change anything, and I'm just going to go ahead and pull out my slide, and I'm going to pull in the Caucus slide, and it should be really close to being in focus. And it is. All right, so there we go. Now the one thing the new slide doesn't have is oil, so I'm going to go ahead and add that. All right, and so these right here, to be honest, it looks pretty much like the slide that we just looked at, right? So if you're sitting there thinking, boy, I don't know, so am I, all right? So the point is that right now you just need to get a good quality image, right? I mean, we wanted it to be a nice, stunning Caucus form, and that's what this slide is supposed to be. So I'm going to look around a little bit more and see if I can find some clear-cut Caucus. Clear-cut Caucus. So what I'm trying to get a look at is this right here. That looks like Streptococcus to me. It may just look like a long string to you. All right, let's go ahead and zoom in on that right there. So that string looks like in the microscope that I'm looking at, looks like a Streptococcus. But when I look at it on the screen, it doesn't look like that nearly as much. Basically what I see is I see a bunch of balls strung together, so it's like a chain of balls. Here you can't really see that as well. Okay, so And so here, so these right here, you can kind of see them when they're out of focus, they look even more circular. But this is an example of individual caucus. Boom, boom, boom. Each of these are individual caucus. So those are what we're getting from this slide that I have. Okay, so not the best. And that's one of the things where sometimes if the prepared slides aren't perfect, the slides that you prepare from the E. coli, the Staphylococcus epidermidis, that should be very caucus, right? Hence the name Staphylococcus. So that should become a lot clearer on that. But anyway, this is what we've got. So what we do is we snap an image of it, right? Using Snap, then we save it as a PNG. We upload it and we go with it, right? We don't get too worked over. If we have a nice, clean image, the best that we could get, that's what we do, and then we move on. So then the next thing to do is, when you're done with your microscope, is to clean it off. So I'm going to go ahead and move the 4x objective into place. I'm going to go ahead and pull my slide out of the area. And then it's really important, if you look at this new lens paper, right, if we do this to the 4x objective, okay, there's no oil on it. There shouldn't be. I'm going to drop the stage down all the way. 10x, no oil on it. 40x, no oil on it, but you should still always check, because if you're going back and forth between 40x and 100x, you may have got oil on the 40x objective. And then the 100x, we can see that oil on there. So what you want to do is you want to keep wiping off the oil, so there's still some there, until you don't see any more. So you always want to start with the new part. Okay, so I'm still getting oil on there. So grab a new piece and make sure you're using your lens paper and only your lens paper. Other types of tissues can scratch it. And if you can hear that, that is that this objective, and I'll go ahead and pull this out. So this objective is nice that you can push it actually goes in. And that is so that you have a little, it can touch your slide and move down on it without cracking through the slide and breaking it, which is why it does that. Okay, so just screw that back in. And then let's go ahead and for our slides, do the same thing. You want to get all the oil off before you put them away. All right. So then the other thing, in terms of your microscope itself, I'm seeing that I've got oil bits on this kind of around here. So this is, this is your microscope, so certainly do with it as you will. I don't know if you can see it there. Yeah, you can see a little kind of smudge, maybe not. Typically what I do is I just take lens paper or another paper towel, some type of Kim wipe, and some ethanol or some isopropanol, the same that I'm using for other parts of the lab, and I clean off the oil. I move the slide holder out of the way. Now what I don't want to do is I don't want to put alcohol on the objectives. Do not do that. What it can do is if you get too much alcohol in there, the lenses actually are thin pieces of glass that are actually fused together, and they use some type of adhesive in there, and if you use a bunch of alcohol in there, it can start kind of pulling out and delaminating it, which you don't want. Okay? So when you're done cleaning it off, it's always a good idea to, this came with a cap, you could do that and put a cap on there, or you can just put your little plastic hood over the whole thing when you put it away.